Good morning. It's Saturday, 11 o'clock, and time for your weekly dose of Deep Drive, our podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. I'm your host, Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm your host, Sergius Barretto. And Hormazd, I think we're going back in time and in the future with this one, right? The Tata Sierra.
That's right, Tata Sierra. We're going to be talking specifically about a product, or let's say even a brand that goes back almost 30 years, well, 25, 26 years for sure. And I think the Sierra really has been one of the most anticipated cars. It's generated massive interest. And it's a big deal for Tata Motors. In fact, I think that's also what we're going to be talking about. What does the Tata Sierra mean for Tata Motors? Because really, it's come at a time when competition in this segment is intensifying. Clearly, the last, let's say, new model or supposedly new model, the Curve didn't do too well.
Right.
But I think the Sierra is really, let's say, the biggest launch since the Nexon about 10 years ago.
No, absolutely right, Hormazd. And I think it would be also fair to say that it's the biggest launch for Tata Motors, in a way, a kind of a rebirth of a old nameplate. And I think this time around, not just at Tata, but across brands, I would say this is a proper rebirth of a moniker. We've had Safari, Tata Safari, which was like a name borrow maybe. We've had the Baleno, for example. But I think this one, the Sierra, the Zen, yeah, absolutely, which was completely polar opposites.
Yeah.
I think this one really is a proper rebirth of an icon in the terms of its character and what it represents.
I couldn't agree with him. I think the shape, conceptually, obviously looks completely different, but you can see conceptually it is similar. And again, that was 3-door. This is 5-door.
Right.
Obviously, 3 doors don't really work, as we know.
Not
greatly. I mean, Thar is an exception. But as you said, I think the Safari, they were, just kind of pushing it a bit too much. There was really nothing in common with the current Safari and the older one. But as you said, I think this Sierra, just looking at the silhouette, you can draw some parallels.
And I think, for me, what I really like is that they've not sort of just rehashed the old design, but there's enough of traits to link it to the old car, but also on its own, if you were to remove the Sierra, nameplate, you would just look at the car and say, wow, it's a really stunning looking car, modern looking. It's got now your DRLs, which is the flavor of the month. The old car didn't have that, but I think on the internal combustion version that has been launched, you have that big black rectangular stretch in front, the widened B-pillar, which apparently right on from the original was something Ratan Tata wanted, and he wanted it kept here.
Yeah, that's a little bit of his touch. I think makes the car special.
Right.
No, I agree with you. I think it looks great. I think it looks really wide, the way they've stretched, the nose looks really wide. I think they've gone to 19-inch rims.
Right.
And, I think overall the proportion, the stance looks absolutely spot on.
And
a longer wheelbase, everything, So, that's right, yeah.
And the wrap over glass. I mean, you can't do that today, but for safety, structural reasons. But I think they've been rather clever about it with, the masking on just that area.
That's right.
Little nod.
That wrap over bit at the top was really iconic in the old Sierra. Had its own issues because really it made the inside a pizza oven, and the original Sierra's AC really wasn't great. So it really had to work overtime in summers to really cool the cabin at that time. Yeah.
In fact, Hormazd, we should talk about the original Sierra as well, for those maybe who would like to revisit the past or those who don't know about it. You and I both have driven this one, right? The original one back then.
Well, I had the privilege of driving the original Sierra just when it was launched, or soon after it was launched, 1991. It wasn't for a review at that point.
Okay.
It was actually for the Himalayan Rally route survey. I used to go on the route survey work for the Himalayan Rally Association, HRA at that time. And Tata was going to sponsor the Himalayan Rally. So they were the sponsors for the 1991 rally, and obviously being the sponsors, they gave us the Sierra. Now, what people don't know that 91 rally never happened. The last Himalayan rally was 1990, and 91 it didn't happen because for reasons best known to Tata Motors, they suddenly pulled out of the sponsorship.
Okay.
In fact, Nazir Hussain sued Tata Motors or Tata, I forget, or, whether it was a group or what, for pulling out at the last minute and the Himalayan rally not taking place because they didn't get the sponsorship. So that's the story no one knows. I think the case went on, and I think it's over now.
Right.
But Nazir Hussain was a very litigious fellow. He's taken many people to court for various reasons. So even he's also passed on. And but coming back to the Himalayan Rally Route Survey, I mean, it was an incredible experience because number one, I drove firstly from Bombay to Delhi. And then from Delhi, we'd go into the Himalayan Rally Route Survey. And when I was all set to go, and we had the Himalayan Rally Route Survey team with me. And we had a meeting with some of the army officials, which was a fixed meeting. So we had to get to Delhi. Almost plan was to drive non-stop. We used to do these crazy things those days. And I said, yeah, sure, someone would share the driving with me. And as it so turned out, the two ladies, one was Katie Hussain and her friend Fatima, who was there. They both didn't know how to drive. There were just three of us. So I had to drive non-stop. So it was 22 hours. We got stuck outside Daisar, some jam or the other. That time there was no expressway, no golden quadrilateral. Everything was just single lane. All single lane all the way. Of course, the traffic was much less. But I remember, one thing, the comfort of that car, and the AC was great in the night. It was really in peak summer. So you can imagine how hot it was. It really came as a blessing. But honestly, there were times when I thought I was falling asleep on the wheel at that point, stopping, having chai and going on and on. So Delhi, we took 22 hours to reach non-stop. And then on went for the Himalayan Rally. Very, very comfortable car. It really, was something completely in a different league at that time because what did we have? We just had a Gypsy and we had, old Mahindras.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
So, 540s and Commanders and stuff like that, which were totally, let's say utilitarian. And the Gypsy again was very bare bones.
Exactly.
Sierra was plush.
Exactly.
Suspension was genuinely good. And I think, a lot of genesis over there is in their ride and handling. They've kind of had that DNA from at that point.
From the start, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's one area they tend to have an edge over Mahindras.
Right.
So I think, it goes back to that time with that body on frame chassis. It was a Tata Mobile base, as we know, shortened wheelbase. Right. But I tell you, the car was the bugbear. It was unreliable.
Right.
And we had issues with it. Alternator packed up. We had to get it fixed. And finally, the scariest part was, and all of the earlier Sierras suffered from it, is that the timing belt would tend to creep off the pulley. And we ended the survey with just this much of the timing belt left on the pulley. So, you know what happens when a timing belt fails, the whole engine goes because...
The engine is gone,
Yeah, so reliability problems notwithstanding, and again, that's really been a bugbear of Tata Motors, the reliability, which sad to say that, it's stuck to the brand, still has, and that's something they have to change. But we'll talk about how it could change with the Sierra because it's being built in a new plant, which in a way is a new beginning. Right. But honestly, I think the Sierra was ahead of its time then. Right. I think I would say it was India's first SUV.
No, absolutely.
Because 91 it was launched. What was there? There was nothing at all.
Exactly.
So I think it really was India's first SUV in that sense. And if you look at it, that was the vision of Ratan Tata, of Tata Motors, to bring these cars which were ahead of their time.
Right.
We can question the execution, but not the concept and the vision. So clearly these were those, what he called bridge products before the Indica came, and built on this Tata Mobile ladder chassis, the platform it was, with the 483 diesel, which again is 4 of a number of cylinders, and 83 was the bore. So I think that's really how the engine was also kind of named, and that 2-liter diesel really went on in many, many iterations from then, and I think we even had a turbo Sierra after that.
Turbo.
And I think we've got some stats on it, Sergius, of what it was. Earlier I think was just around what, 68 horsepower, 60s?
68, and then I think the
90.
turbo went to 90 horsepower.
Yeah, that's right.
You
Yeah.
know,
A
but-
big jump if you look
But
at
they
it.
were both slow. I mean, the naturally aspirated one, I was just looking at the data. It was clocked at 33 odd seconds.
200. Yeah.
200.
You know, in that age, what you got to compare with what was there.
Exactly,
You know, I don't think it would have been too bad. I mean, today cars have just shows the pace of development in that much time. But you know, coming back to the Sierra, also it was a mix of let's say two people, Sumant Mulgaonkar, who was very, very influenced by Mercedes. You know, having worked in Tata Motors and been associated with Mercedes through the trucks. So clearly, you know, everyone said that Tata Mobile copied the Mercedes front, and that's kind of translated into the Sierra. Then even the Tata Estate. Tata Estate was really quite a copy of a Mercedes Estate.
Right.
But with the Sierra, you had Ratan Tata's influence with the wraparound, a bit of a, again, influenced by the Ford Bronco of that time. So really quite, interesting, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think, in fact, Hormazd, it's the first SUV, and you know, it was a luxury SUV because I remember my aunt.
Yeah, you had central locking.
Yeah, power windows.
Power window.
So
It was fantastic. So it was so ahead of its time.
Absolutely.
And that really, I think, you know, we have to hand it to Tata Motors and specifically Ratan Tata, you know, for really pushing for, making probably the first Indian luxury vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. My aunt had one. I was the only one of the nephews and nieces allowed to drive it because it was the luxury car of the family. She had an 800 or I think an 800 was then, I'm not sure. But, that was held in very high esteem. You would go out for a function in that. And despite it being, like we said, it was a two-door in front. But that rear wasn't a compromise. The rear was a highlight. It was
absolutely absolutely right. It was a
she would love staying at the back here and me driving in front.
It was fantastic, but again, you know, cooling was a problem at the back because the AC was weak at summer, and you know, the throw, there was nothing like, you know, rear AC vents at that point. Concept didn't exist, so had to depend on the blower up front. So there were a lot of glitches, but I think really, looking at it, what it did, what it was at that time, and I think you can't take away the fact that it was India's first proper SUV.
Right, absolutely. So, Hormazd, let's come to now present day or rather about 5 years ago, because technically Tata have taken their time actually even after announcing its Rebirth. So 91 we had the original, of course, yes. It was in 2020 that they showed the first concept at the Auto Expo. And if you look at it now, it's like 5 years from then to now.
I think a lot has changed, Sergius. I think that concept they showed at the Auto Expo was fundamentally on the Punch platform.
Right.
You know, or the Punch dimensions, you know, the X4. So
right.
I think what has happened, and you know, we've kind of been a little skeptical on, is it an old platform? I think earlier we also said it's a heavily modified platform, but I think we have to correct ourselves.
Right.
After the media drive, looking at the car and talking to the engineers and seeing how some of the dimensions have changed.
Exactly. Yeah.
It has to be an all-new platform.
It is an all-new.
And let's talk about why it has to be an all-new platform, because certain hard points have changed. Number one is, you've got that what we call L113 that has been enlarged to take a wheel diameter of 740 millimeters in the current Sierra. So you can go up to 19-inch wheels.
19 inches.
Easily.
Yeah.
Which they have. So clearly that had to be done. So the platform needed had to be, you had to completely re-engineer it, which was fundamentally a new platform. Then I think the other one was extending the width, the length between the center line of the cabin to the center line of the steering wheel.
Right.
That again, if you widen that, you have to change the platform. It's not that easy because you're talking about changes in the firewall.
Exactly.
When you talk about changes in the firewall, the A-pillar position, A-pillar again changed, if you see, and they've done a great job by when they change it. The visibility, I think, has been fantastic.
Yeah.
I think we both drove it. The A-pillar intrusion is just not there.
Yeah, they've twisted the A-pillar if you look at it. Yeah, so it's not a uniform section. They cannot contour it.
I mean, the driving position of the new car was really good. And then again, talking about why the platform is, had to be new, is they have made a provision for all-wheel drive.
Right.
Which the X4 platform or the Nexon platform, X1, whichever one you take, the existing platforms don't have. Right. So I think, they kind of try to make out that the Curve platform was new and what they call it Atlas. But I think this one is genuinely new.
Yeah.
So they've got these names Atlas, Argos, marketing speak. But anyway, so I think this platform is new. It's stiffer, longer wheelbase.
Right.
So I think, it all points to the fact that you can't, do this on an existing platform. You just have to kind of start from a new sheet of paper. And I think what we need to emphasize is that when they've spent so much money and resource on developing this platform, you can expect a whole bunch of other body styles also to come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you could have potentially even a 3-row
Right.
product on this, which might sit below the Safari, might even overlap a bit. Then you could have you could have a coupe version on this
Yes,
as
it
well.
could go back to 2 doors, the original.
Go back to 2 doors. So I think the possibilities are endless. And also with this platform, I think they've taken the opportunity, since they've got a new platform, to kind of, get the latest E&E architecture, electric and electronic architecture. Now, clearly it's Ethernet ready. I think that might come a bit later, though they said it's got Ethernet. But from what we understand, that's still a phased thing coming in. And I think, so I think they've modernized it as much as possible. Obviously, we can just assume it'll come with a 5-star rating. Tata have to not give that.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it's also a bit heavy. It's heavier than the Creta, and that again we'll talk about. So I think weight is one area where perhaps they could have done better. And I think that could have been maybe optimized. But again, otherwise it's absolutely fresh and made in a new plant as well.
No, absolutely, Hormazd. It is definitely an all-new platform. You can even see that from behind the wheel. Like you said, the curve, a great example when they tried to pass off as, let's say, a new platform. From behind the wheel too, you knew you were looking at something very familiar from a Nexon. If you drove a Nexon, even certain placement and a lot of component carryover. Here, there isn't any component carryover, hardly anything.
The steering wheel, you've got the
HVAC unit,
FADC, yeah.
And I think the selector, and that's about it.
Everything selector they've carried over the bag which it has. They've not been able to improve that.
Yeah. So, but I think everything else, even the control stocks, very nice premium new control stocks.
Control stocks, they feel absolutely fantastic. Absolutely solid. In fact, everything inside, the tactile feel, it's got a lovely heft. I think if you ask me, just looking at the interior and what they've done, I think it's fair to say that Tata Motors have put their heart and soul into the new Sierra. Yeah.
Absolutely. It shows. It clearly shows. I mean, in terms of the content, because you've got a triple screen setup, for example, you've got an HUD. Oddly though, with only the twin screen setup.
I think there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I think certainly some engineering or packaging.
I think the sense I get is, they can do it later. They might do it in part of a life cycle measure to have 3 screens and the HUD. Right. They say, the HUD is for the people who are driver focused. So you don't look at the third screen, you look at the HUD and only the 2 screens. But from what I understand, all these systems take a lot of data.
Right.
And currently they're running, CAN FD, which is...
along with the Ethernet though.
So I think the Ethernet, from what I understand, that will come later. So I think right now, they don't have the firepower or the data speed to run everything, which is 3 screens and the HUD. Yeah. Right. So that's what I've heard. But I don't know, whether they've not confirmed that. Right. Of course, they won't confirm that. But that will come later on. Definitely for the EV version, they will have it, because by then there'll be a lot more firepower, which you will need, from the electrical and electronics system.
Right. And, Hormazd, I think also the fit and finish, huge improvement. And I have to be fair to Tata here. I noticed it with us and every other journalist, whenever there's a new Tata product that rolls out, we kind of put on our glasses and, okay, let's look for those panel gaps now, with extra zeal. Yeah. Because of their past, obviously, they've had issues with interior quality. So even with that on, I would say there is an improvement. Soft touch materials, stitching that's absolutely straight, piano black finish, the gloss, absolutely distortion free. So it was nice to see this step up in quality.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, they've really, as I said, put a lot into it and really chosen very expensive, very premium materials, which automatically lifts the cabin.
Right.
If you go a little closer, for example, that little panel on which the power window switch sits, it's a little kind of rickety, I would say. And, I think you press it and you'll find there's a lot of... Yeah, you're talking to some of the engineers, they do acknowledge that. I think it needed a little bit of reinforcement, but that would have had to go under the power window switches, which are just before that. So I think, these small things are there. But, otherwise, it's, how do I say, it's an interior that really feels very rich and premium. And, the equipment, that sound bar, the seats stitching is good. Yeah, you might see some waviness a little bit, especially at the back.
Yeah.
But, that's on a lot of, I would say that's an Indian supplier issue.
It is.
Because you'll even find that on VW cars made in India.
Yeah.
I think Indian seat suppliers, for some reason, have really not been able to get that stitching or even the carpeting in the boot.
Right.
It's always a little loose, never snug and tight.
Absolutely.
I noticed this when I was looking at, let's say, something like even a Vento and then the Virtus. You'll find this part was really not... I think it's a supplier issue across. So, but, otherwise, you really can't fault it well. I think, as you said, the piano black, really, they've got a good finish over there. So, vents feel really solid.
Right.
The rear seat was fantastic. Had lots of legroom. You felt really good, very spacious. So, I think overall, really a big jump up in quality.
Right.
And Sergius, I think... What really impressed me is how tight the panel gaps are compared to other Tata models. And that really is a function of the plant.
Right. Yeah. Which will come to also, Hormazd, but because we've also got to talk of the product, the new engines. You've got the turbo direct injection petrol finally out. We've both driven that one. You have the naturally aspirated version of it. Very interesting engine on paper. We are yet to drive that, unfortunately. And then the diesel, which they've tweaked actually in terms of software and hardware, because they've changed the piston rings. They are lower friction ones now, to sort of smoothen things out, get more, I think there's 20 Newton meters more torque on the automatic version.
Yeah, but not on the manual. Manual is 20 Newton meters less.
Is less, yeah. Why is that though?
It's the gearbox.
Okay, so
the limitation is the manual gearbox,
right,
which is local, has been around for long. It can't take more torque.
Right.
It's not designed to take more torque.
Right.
Whereas the automatic can take more torque, and that's why they've given it.
Which is another new component to Tata, the Aisin 6-speed gearbox.
I think if you ask me, in the powertrain of both these engines we drove, the hero really is the transmission.
Right.
Because this is Aisin's latest gen transmission, latest software. And it really is smooth shifting, and it masks a bit of the deficiencies of the engine. Let's say even from a point of view of the diesel, you don't really feel the turbo lag. It's a very linear kind of a feel. You don't have that boost because now in any case with BS6 engines, because of emissions, you can't, just give boosts of rich mixture to kind of, get the, get that kick. But that's with all BS6 engines, that turbo kick, which you get, that characteristic turbo kick, that's gone. So I think this engine, this gearbox rather, it kind of really has been the hero of the powertrain for me. Very, very smooth shifting. And even the turbo petrol, very smooth, very linear. I think does the job. I think we both drove it, quite refined as well. But, I still think... that's one area where Tatas are a little overall below class standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would absolutely agree there, because for Tata, it's a big improvement. And in terms of a petrol, we know Tata have never been really strong on petrols.
Huge improvement on the petrol.
Definitely huge improvement.
Yeah. But, you don't feel that the acceleration is absolutely wow.
Yeah.
It's very linear, very smooth.
Yes.
And I think we timed it briefly. It was not slow.
It's not slow. It's actually a little bit quicker than the Creta, for example, turbo.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. You don't feel that. The gearbox kind of just delivers everything in a really smooth, the shifts are easy. But, Hormazd, I have to say, when you're talking about the latest gen, even the software of the gearbox, we were both charging up through the hills on swapping cars.
Yeah.
At not one point did I have to reach for the paddles to correct the gearbox behavior.
Yeah.
I think it always kept the the engine
absolutely
in the right.
My only issue is they've been very conservative. Obviously, whatever, there's no manual override to hold the engine up to the red line.
It'll not, it'll not do
And
that.
it's shifting, under 5,000 RPM. Now, for a
The petrol,
petrol engine,
yeah.
you want a little bit more oomph. You want to rev it a bit more. You get that sporty feel. And I also felt that the differentiation in modes was not that great. They could have really kind of given, a sharper difference
Sport
in the
mode.
feel, in sport mode.
Yeah.
So, maybe with sport mode, they could have given a bit more revs, but again, overall, a good job. And, again, coming to the diesel, again, it does the job. I think a diesel with a torque converter is absolutely the best combination. I'm glad they didn't use a DCT on this one.
Yeah.
Very sensible choice. And really, that's transformed that diesel as well. Only issue is a little high on NVH, and there was also a bit of road noise. So I think, in terms of that ultimate refinement, it could have been better.
Yeah.
But none of this is a deal breaker. It's all in context with something else. I think, and overall, that package feels so premium and rich that, that is what I think where the Sierra really stands out. It is so absolutely desirable.
Yeah, absolutely. I in fact, I think Tata know this. They're trying to also sort of pull a slight bit of a premium there. In fact, both Vivek and Shailesh were both very keen and, to reinforce the point and telling me that, well, this is not the mid-size SUV segment. This is the premium mid-size SUV segment,
Yeah.
To an extent, I can see where they're going with it.
Yeah, so I think, they would love to position as a premium SUV. But, in the end, it's the market perception. Number one, to be honest, the Tata name.
Right.
How much of a premium can that pull? And, there's this skepticism around it. And clearly, I think, so they have to really balance the brand strength in this point against a real, let's say, hero or a giant like the Creta, which really has a lot of pull, and also manage the prices. And I think that's where the fine balance is going to be, how to kind of give that perceived value, which is, and perceived value is not only equipment, your badge itself, the Tata name, the Sierra name, all of that has a certain value element. And, balancing that with the features and the content and finally the product.
Yeah, absolutely, Hormazd. In fact, I think they are, everyone expected maybe them, like you said, perhaps because of the brand strength. Tata don't come from, in the segment, especially from a position of strength. Expected, killer pricing. It's not that killer pricing, right? But I think you've got to look at everything.
I think the base one is about...
the base is above a Creta, but as you go higher, it kind of gets better. You have a little more.
That's right. And at the top end is really aggressive, which is where you want to kind of play.
You've got more content as well, like a 3-screen setup versus a Creta, which doesn't have that. You've got
the sound bar.
You've got the sound bar in front. You've got that HUD. So, you do have, I would say, additional content over a Creta, which is quite something. We know Hyundais are very well loaded.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see Tata also getting into that.
Correct. Of course, now things like ventilated seats, all that is just par for the course.
Yeah, is almost like an expectation today.
Yeah, and of course we've got the sunblinds as well. So which again seems like a tick box you have to have.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's even the power tailgate, which is another unique, against the Creta. So yeah, I'm happy to see that Tata are kind of addressing everything. The content in the car. Of course, like you said, they will have safety addressed, wide powertrain options already from day one.
Yeah.
You've got because not too many people are addressing diesel today. Right, but Tata are still addressing diesel.
That's right, and even at the low end, you've got a 1.5 with a manual and an automatic.
Yes,
they've used the DCT in the
natural aspect.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm not sure how that would be vis-a-vis a 1.5 Creta with the CVT.
Right.
I think which is the bulk of the sale, but I think clearly this is an entry point. And of course, I think the kind of unglamorous or modest, naturally aspirated engine, frankly, that really plays a key role in this segment, as we've seen.
It's the bulk seller.
Exactly, which we tend to ignore because obviously the turbo petrols are the one which have all the power and glam around them. But I think the 1.5 Creta mated with the CVT, killer combination. The Sierra, 106 horsepower, more than what Maruti offers in the Victoris. And, Victoris still does decent numbers. I'm talking about the non-hybrid version. So, really, I think more than power, it's going to be about efficiency in this case. This one is running an Atkinson cycle.
Right.
So it's really tailored towards efficiency. Of course, you know, ARAI figures are one thing, but we'll have to test them ourselves to see how efficient they are in our real world tests. So I think clearly they're looking at efficiency, for people who just want an efficient SUV, not wanting the power and just want the design. And I think the styling is, to me, half the battle won with the Sierra.
Absolutely.
It just looks so good. So, but, again, paired with a DCT or a twin clutch as opposed to a CVT, clearly, I think the CVT combination is better, but still, at least they have an automatic with the base version, which, a lot of brands don't have.
And actually, if you think about it, Hormazd, it's quite against the convention in the sense that on the less sporty engine, you have the quicker shifting gearbox, the dual clutch. Whereas on the more sporty engine, you have the more smoother gearbox, which is the torque converter, right?
Yeah, correct. No, I think, honestly, it was a good call. I don't think the Punch, which is the DCT, is really of, let's say, up to a VW DSG, for example, which is still the gold standard. And as you rightly said, in the Kushak and Taigun, it's the 1.5 turbos which have the twin clutch, and the 1 liters which have the ICE in. Here it's the opposite. So I think Tata Motors has cleverly hedged, their kind of powertrain sourcing as well. And at the end of the day, Sergius, this ICE and 6-speed is the gold standard for small capacity engine. So they've taken the right call. And I still think a torque converter is better than a DCT for most applications, unless you're really going to be blasting up a hill, which you are not. Most of the time, you're going to be driving in the city, and in stop-go conditions, the torque converter far outperforms or is much better than, let's say, a DCT. So I think, as I said earlier, great decision to go with the ICE and 6-speed for both the diesel and the petrol. And I think really for me, that's really been, let's say, one key element of the powertrain that has really uplifted the driving experience.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the powertrain strategy, I am really happy to see because we know there's also the all-electric version going to come out. It's going to bring in 4x4. Hybrid is definitely a possibility. I think the Atkinson cycle on the 1.5 naturally aspirated is a clear nod that's being also
there. Because hybrids normally use Atkinson cycles.
Yeah. So they're going to likely look at a hybrid as well. So I think powertrains, Tata are really sort of taking everything. I don't know about CNG. They do have CNG in there, but I don't know whether they should do this in the Sierra.
Yeah, well, I think in the end, the market always decides. I think Tata have actually made CNG cool. Yeah. It's not seen as, let's say, down market the way it is in Maruti's. And we've seen that,
Yeah.
No compromise on the equipment, and if they package it well, there's no reason why, it shouldn't do well. I mean, the only thing is the owner having to queue up in the CNG line rather than a petrol line. But, from the exterior, if they keep everything the same, you could get a CNG version as well. I don't know what the performance would be. Clearly, SUVs have to have a base level of performance. That's why people buy it. Yeah. Performance much more important in SUVs than other body styles, that's for sure. So I think all these things have to be kind of factored in. But I think, Sergius, before we end, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is quality. Because, I experienced that with the first Sierra. They've really gone a long way. But again, Tata Motors of late has had a lot of flack for quality issues. And I think with Sanand, this could be a new beginning. And hopefully, I think we need to talk about the plant.
Yeah.
Because I think what Tata did when they bought the Ford plant isn't they just bought a plant. They got the people with it and the culture with it. Right. And at the end of the day, it's not machines that make cars. It's people that make cars. And people is what determines the quality. And this inverted structure where the guy on the assembly line is the most empowered compared to the person on the top. I think that's what, can make a difference. So I think, they're really banking on let's say, the culture and the processes of the Ford plant to deliver a level of quality not seen before in Tata cars.
Absolutely. Hormazd. That Ford plant, as we know from the past, it is a state-of-the-art plant. All of the best machinery, tight tolerances, like you said, the right culture. Tata have sort of got all of that. It's not just, a brick and mortar that they bought.
This plant, I think, one doesn't realize how important it is. And I think, the other thing, this has all been done on the chairman, Mr. Natarajan Chandrasekharan. I think this is really the first all-new product on his watch and on a plant which, under his leadership, he kind of took from Ford. And, so I think new engine, new platform, investment in the new platform, which he, of course, signed off. It would be very expensive to do that. When you realize you can't modify the existing platform anymore, you have to go to a new platform if you are to meet your targets of, wheel size, space, all that kind of thing. So I think, really, in a way, it is a new beginning for Tata Motors because a lot of things are new, new engine as well.
Yeah.
First kind of foray into petrol engines in this category. We've had the 1.2s earlier. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. I don't think it's going to be easy because as we've seen, the mid-size SUV segment is hotting up. We've got the Seltos.
Yeah.
We've got updates to the Kushaq and Taigun coming.
Duster.
We've got the Duster coming as well. So I think, it's going to be, let's say exciting. I think really where I think the Sierra stands out, I think is with the design, and they've managed to inject that level of premiumness and desirability into the car, which, I think is an Indian formula. You just dazzle customers with something that feels so good and makes you feel pampered that you sometimes tend to ignore, let's say, some of the, rough edges.
Right. Absolutely. No, it was, in fact, I think at the review itself, as I was saying, it kind of pulls at the head and the heartstrings. It's nice to see that Tata have done that. Styling has never been a problem for Tata Motors, as is ride and handling. Hopefully the new plant addresses this. And, before we sign off, Hormazd, there's something also we must discuss, the brand, because the Sierra brand, I mean, if you look at Jaguar Land Rover, the house of brand concept that they have there now, Defender is an independent brand, Range Rover is an independent brand. I put this question to Tata, to Sailesh, to Martin, the design as well. I said, do you think the Sierra has the potential to be an independent brand now? And they said, yeah, absolutely. We're looking to that. And, the conundrum is, do we grow the product? So just, long wheelbase, short wheelbase, two-door, or do we grow it as a brand? So like you have like the Range Rover, Range Rover has a Range Rover Sport, has a big Range Rover, completely different products, but a Range Rover. So I think they clearly see the potential also.
That's right. The potential is there, but don't forget, in the end, you want to make the brand strong. The product has to live up to the promise. A product has to deliver. You can't just do it based on a legacy name which you're bringing back, and otherwise it just won't work.
So there's a lot riding on the Sierra.
There is a lot riding on the Sierra, but as I said, as we've said, it's all the stars have aligned. Let's say new platform, new engines, new segment, new plant. And so really, I think, this is Tata's got a fantastic shot and, of making this car a winner. So I think what Tata need to ensure is that, the quality level that we've seen in the car, that is maintained, that is consistent. And of course, that in the long term, the ownership also is as hassle-free as can be possible. What's going to make the job difficult is that it's up against a giant like the Creta. But again, this car has a lot that the Creta doesn't. Well, that's it from us on Deep Drive. Hope you enjoy our podcast every week. To make sure you don't forget to watch us every Saturday at 11 o'clock, do stay notified. Click on the bell icon so you are reminded. And of course, you can also catch us on other platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks for watching. See you again next week, same time.